Karen Andrews. I am the Managing Director of the Andrews Group, and I'm also an alumni, as are all your panelists. I received my master's degree in Human Resources and Organizational Development a long time ago, that's all I'm going to say. I was fortunate enough to be one of the first group of students to take classes in this building. I think I had my first semester at Prairie Herald, and it was oh so exciting to take classes here. And I'm thrilled to come back and be able to talk with you today. I'm very proud to be sitting with you amongst these distinguished ladies. So, to my immediate right is Marissa Staples.
Hi.
Marissa is more of a recent graduate, and so her perspective today is going to be super valuable for you because she's graduated and immediately launched into a successful career, so she's going to give you some tips and ideas about that. But she currently is serving as an account manager at DocuStar, and she's worked there just over 2 years. She has her Bachelor of Arts degree, and she also she has not only a full-time job, but another part-time job with the Voice of Your Customer, which is a customer research and marketing company. So please welcome Marissa. And then in the middle, in the very fancy chair, is Rebecca Snevel. And Rebecca and I share the excitement of taking classes in this building, right? It was pretty exciting. We thought we were really cool. Anyway, she's a managing consultant at Resources Global Professionals, and she travels a lot. She's got to go to some exciting places, but she is a graduate from Eastern with a bachelor's in business administration with a focus in accounting and information systems, and she has over 20 years of experience as a CPA with a Big Four firm where she's been made partner. So Rebecca's experience is not only accounting and information systems, but really global consulting, and she's going to have a lot of great information to share with you. So please welcome her. And I will let you. All right, and then Grace Lee is back again this year as a speaker at the Alumni Conference. She was here last year as well, and we're delighted to have her back. Grace is co-founder of Logic Solutions, which specializes in web application and website development, mobile application development, e-learning solutions, and social networks. So very, very critical, timely skills. She's also the vice chair and president of the Asian Pacific American Chamber of Commerce and serves on the advisory board for the accounting and finance department here in the College of Business. And she received her MBA from Eastern. So welcome, Grace.
I graduated a long time ago. I never have a class here, so that's why I am.
But she looks like she was taking classes just last year. So. And then Pam Bishop is on the end, and she's also coming back and joining us again this year. Pam is a consultant and delivery manager at Experis. And so Pam also travels all over the place. She spent 6 weeks in Denver this year, right? And she is an advisory board member at Schoolcraft College and is a certified facilitator at the Institute of International Auditors. So she really does a lot of different type of assignments in her consulting practice. Now, auditing just being one piece, and she'll tell us a little bit more about all the other exciting things that she assists companies with. And she received her master's in business administration from EMU. So these are our panelists. Aren't they wonderful? All right, so I've talked enough. I'm going to let the panelists talk. So we're going to have each one of them talk a little bit about their experience at Eastern, their field of study, why they chose that, what they really enjoyed about their experience at Eastern, what helped them, and then they're going to tell you a little bit about what their job is, their current duties, their role, to give you a sense of the kinds of opportunities that are out there. And then they're going to share a piece of wisdom, or a key thought they'd like to leave you with as you are thinking about entering the workforce. So Marissa, let's start with you.
All right. Well, like she said, I have my BA from EMU, journalism. Came to school back in 2005. I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. So got here because they had the good neighbor policy, so I'm still able to pay in-state tuition while being from out of state. Always knew I was going to go into journalism. Love to write, love to do poems. Always did short stories when I was little, so I knew writing was for me. I also wrote for EMU magazine while I was. Is that still around? EMU magazine? No? I know we have the, you guys still have the Echo, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so EMU see, I should have stayed and kept going. But I wrote for EMU Magazine. With them, I did entertainment stories, stories on different organizations here, and also I did the horoscopes every month. So that was really cool, because I did research with the stars and the zodiac signs and everything, so loved it. EMU Magazine really helped me be creative. While yes, I took creative classes here, and then your reporting classes and everything for writing, EMU let me express myself the way that I wanted to. It kind of gave me that creative pen, that free spirit to write. And actually one of my favorite professors here was Carol, I still can't pronounce her name, Carol Schlagach. Is she still here? Does anybody know? I know James Pinson. Is he here anymore? Okay, no. Well, so they were my favorite professors. But they really helped me. If anything, I would say utilize your professors. They are great mentors. They will speak with you, whether it's through email. I've had some meet me in a coffee shop. I've had others just talk to me for a brief 20 minutes after class that help me keep my head on straight. So definitely utilize your professors as mentors, because they are there for that, and they are glad to help you. I also did an internship at Fox 2 News Detroit. Well, it's really located in Southfield, but did an internship there, and it was really nice. I got to write the about 15 to 30-second promos for them to lead into the news. So it was like the 30-second commercials that you would see on TV. I would be the ones writing that, and they would go and say it. So I had, they even gave my own disc, like a movie reel. They had it all on it, which was very cool. So definitely utilize the internships that you can find. What I did was I went to one of the career fairs that they had, and that's how I got my internship at Fox 2 News. So every event that they have, whether you get credit for it or not, you guys should definitely go to, because in the long run, it is going to help you. And after that, I graduated in 2010, and I was honestly saying my transition from college to career, it was a little rocky at first, being that my major is journalism, it wasn't business. There's not a lot of great journalism jobs out there. A lot of things are going to the media. You have blog people who are just writing, and they don't have a degree to write. They're just writing because they want to, and people listen to them more than they would listen to me. So it was a struggle kind of coming out and finding a job that I thought was right for me. But I read through different companies, read their mission statements, saw their values, and saw that it was a fit, that it was a place fit for me. So I didn't jump right in a position that used my degree right away. I kind of took the opportunity, went in as an admin assistant, made it to marketing assistant, which was great, but then the company didn't budget enough to keep me as a marketing assistant. So then I kind of went back to admin, but I was still doing marketing stuff, just in overtime work. Then I got another promotion to account manager, and that was awesome. That's where I'm at today, which is great. And with account manager, I'm still doing communications, I'm still writing for clients, I'm still pushing their orders through. And then on top of that, I have a part-time job, which is pretty much I can make my own hours there at a marketing and research company, the Voice of Your Customer in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I say that to say, when you graduate, it's awesome to find a job right in your field. Some people can do it. My brother, for example, he went to Miami University in Oxford, graduated general engineering. He works at Jacobs Engineering. Found it right out. To me, he's a golden child. I don't like him that much. Whatever. You know, he had it, I didn't. Whatever. But you know, some people can find that, and then you have others who can't. And don't get discouraged. It's just a trial and error, and you will find your place. My best tip that I live by is life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. And what that means is all about your attitude. It's all about the energy and the positivity that you're putting out there. So just keep that in mind and keep going forward. That's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great. All right. So we'll hear from each of the panelists. We'll do a little bit of, I'll moderate a little bit more specific discussion, and then we will open it up for your questions towards the end. But let's hear from Rebecca next.
We have the IT person follow the journalist. I don't like to talk to people. No.
Oh gosh. Right, I'm such a gabby person.
No, I mean, what a great testimony to your dedication. It's very inspirational. I'm happy to have met you and hear that.
Thank you.
I graduated a long time ago. And I was very excited. I got carded the other day, so this is a big deal for me. Somebody asked to see my ID when I ordered a drink. It hasn't happened in many, many years. But anyway, So I graduated a long time ago when the building first opened, which everybody probably knows because it's on the outside. But I got to spend a couple years, and it was really exciting for us because we came here into this brand new building. I don't even think we were allowed to have drinks in the room.
That's right.
Right? And so it was very exciting. And I chose to, first I was majoring in accounting. And I did that because I wanted to do something that I liked to do, but that I knew I could get a job in. Because to me, being able to be financially independent was really important. And so I liked the books, I liked analyzing all of that. And I've always had mentors along the way. Even in college, I had mentors. Before that, when I was very young, my uncle started mentoring me for whatever reason. I guess his kids tell me it's because I listened to him and they didn't, but it was nice to see. And I always kind of admired him because he came over from Italy when he was 16 and had nothing. And I just was amazed by that story and how he and his family have adopted to the U.S. and the things that they've done. So it's been a great story and a great inspiration to me. And so when I was talking with one of my mentors, who was a friend of mine that actually we lived in Hoyt, and I lived there for 2 years, and then he came over with this piece of paper that had all the majors in the College of Business, the percentage of people that had jobs after, as they graduated or after they graduated, and then the average salary. And he said, Rebecca, you like computers. Look, here's the accounting and here's the numbers, and here's the accounting information systems and the numbers. And at the time, the accounting information systems degree had, I want to say 97 or 98% employment and a higher salary. And I thought, oh, okay, well, this makes a lot of sense. I have a better chance of getting a job. I like IT. I'm going to do this. And so I started taking the IT classes, which were very difficult for me. I'm not a programmer by nature. And I jokingly tell people that, training this brain to be a programmer and an auditor is very dangerous. So I ask a lot of questions. And if somebody's telling me a story and I can't understand, I have to sometimes hold back because I like to understand logically what's going on. And I think the great thing about that was it did teach me that logic, to understand processes and systems and all of those types of activities. And so I actually interviewed with Deloitte and a couple other people for an internship the year before I graduated. And what was interesting is I actually didn't get the internship. They gave it to somebody from U of M. And I was talking with Dean Tidwell about that, and he said that's a concern that he hears sometimes from the students here. And so I was a little bit disappointed, certainly, that I didn't get the position. But I understood it's U of M, it's a great school, and it's different, and so I'm going to keep moving forward. But the great thing about Deloitte was the recruiter at the time said, we really like you and we want to talk to you next year when we start recruiting. And I thought, okay, that's good. And I went and I did another internship at an automotive manufacturer. It's kind of second tier here in Ann Arbor. And so then jobs started, or the interviewing started for the next year. And I actually had my job with Deloitte, I think in November before I graduated. And so I was really excited about that. So I knew that I was going to join Deloitte Touche. I knew that I was going to move to Columbus, Ohio. I'm from Cleveland, so Ohio connection. And so that was all great for me. And actually, it was really good for me to do the internship because I was more of a cost accountant, and it pushed me outside of my boundaries because it wasn't really IT focused. And I do go back and refer to a lot of that knowledge when I'm in details, kind of understanding what clients are doing and really understanding how do we help them. And so that was kind of my transition. So I joined Deloitte. I started at the very bottom within their enterprise risk services group. I was an external auditor for 2 years and got to see a lot of different clients and companies, and I started working right away. It was funny because all of a sudden I noticed a bunch of people sitting in the conference room on our floor, and I said to my boss, I said, what are they doing? He said, oh, they're studying for the CPA exam. And I said, what do you mean they're studying for the CPA exam? I have to work at clients 60 hours a week, and they get to study, they get paid to study? This doesn't make sense to me. And he just stopped worrying about what other people are doing, which was really good advice. Worry about what you're doing. And so it was a really great transition. And so I went up through the ranks at Deloitte fast, probably in retrospect maybe a little too fast. While it was great to get promoted every 2 or 3 years, the expectations are tremendous, and it's a wonderful opportunity. Ultimately, I made partner, which was very exciting, and really you run your own business at that point. So you have your own clients, you have your own team, you have all these things that you're doing kind of as an entrepreneur in this big firm, which was amazing. And so I spent 20 years there, and after traveling what I would call kind of 400%, which to me is every day I'm traveling someplace else. So not only are you working a full day, but then you're also traveling, whether it be an airport. I mean, there were times where I had multiple rental cars in multiple airports and trying to figure out where I was and what I was doing. And one of my best friends likes to tell the story of, I called him one day and I said, where's my car? And he said, it's at the airport. And I said, I know it's at the airport, but which airport? I literally could not remember where it was. And it was actually, I think it was in Pittsburgh. So I flew back to Columbus because thinking it was there and finding out my car was in Pittsburgh.
Oh,
so
man.
it was like, okay, something's wrong here. I'm not getting enough sleep. I can't remember things. You know, and as wonderful as the opportunity was, I've probably been at 50 different clients, probably 35 of them Fortune 500. I've seen big ones. I've seen Fortune 2, Fortune 3, also middle market and smaller clients, private clients. So it's been a wonderful experience. But you know, when I decided to transition, it was to get off the road a little bit. So I don't travel 500%, it's only 80% now. But also now I have global responsibility for our data governance practice, which also includes our information security and privacy practices at RGP. So it's a smaller consulting firm, actually started by Deloitte a number of years ago. And I work directly with our global information management leader, and we're doing a lot of support, growth, training of the team, selling. I still deliver work, so I still have responsibility to deliver security and privacy services as well as master data management, data governance services. So it's a lot of opportunity. It's great. It's broad, which is amazing, but it's been a really great journey. I think my one piece of wisdom would be I think probably the most significant thing, and this kind of gets into the men and women working together. In IT, it's a lot of men. In accounting, it's maybe 50, maybe 60% women now. I don't know, it'd be a little bit more, but I'm generally with meetings where there's maybe 20% women. And one of the things that I realized after having a long debate with a client who was a man, we were going back and forth about internal controls, and it was very cordial. It was just, you know, debating a particular topic. And at the end, I was still a little emotionally charged about it because I, you know, didn't know exactly what was going to be the outcome. And we ultimately reached the outcome, and he said, okay, hey, you want to go get a beer? And I said, what? And he goes, do you want to go have a drink? And I'm like, oh, okay. I go, are you mad at me? Because then, and he, you know, and he kind of looked at me, he goes, no. He goes, Rebecca, we can debate anything, and then we wrap it up, and then we go have a drink, and it's done. And we were traveling at the time to another city. And I thought that was really amazing because for me as a woman, a lot of times I get emotionally charged and I have to stop, right? But what I thought was amazing about the men, and this is what I learned from them, is you can have that discussion and then everybody's okay and you move on to the next thing. And I think that's one of the things that we need to learn. It's sometimes it's personal, but a lot of times you could have that, you know, you can disagree without being disagreeable, and you can move on to the next thing. And it doesn't have to mean that you're not supportive of each other. And this guy is an amazing client, and really I have a lot of respect for him. And so I think that's the big thing is to try to keep focused on the task and the task at hand and the facts. So.
Thank you. Okay. All right, let's hear from Grace Lee.
Okay, my story is a little bit different. I went to UCLA for my undergrad in economics. I moved to Michigan because my husband is going to be UVM for a PhD, so we moved here. And I didn't know what to do. And somehow I got lucky, got into the accounting firm, public accounting firm. And I only had 4 accounting classes back then. So I got really lucky. But I go in and then, you know, I want to be a CPA, so I decided to come to EMU for my, to take up all the accounting class so I can certify, you know, to take the classes. And from UCLA, come to EMU. It's a big school to a small school, but I like EMU a lot better because at UCLA, we have undergrad, you know, the lower division class, we have 500, you know, students. You have no idea, you know, they don't really care. You know, we sit in the back of the hall, my neck was sore, you know, the class. So I like EMU a lot better. You know, you got to know the professor, you have, you know the students, and you don't, you know, you don't feel like just a number. And so after I finished, I got my MBA, you know, I took all my things and working for an accounting firm for a while, and I decided to start Logic Solutions with one of my husband's friends. And back in 1995, when web technology, the internet just started, it was very interesting. You call the client up, say, yes, we'll do these things. You go to the computer, people will see your company information. They cannot imagine. Right now, it's very intuitive, but you know, back in about 20 years ago, they did think, are you scamming me? Well, you know, so then we had to really spend a lot of time trying to explain that. But we are been growing. We have 6 offices around the world. We have about 250 employees right now, globally. And we were awarded as the top 50 companies to watch in Michigan in 2012. So we came a long way, and there was a lot of learning, as we pay a lot of tuitions because we learned a lot of things we did wrong. But one thing I think I learned probably is, being an Asian in the technology field and a woman, and don't let people tell you what you cannot do. And because that stop you, and don't let yourself tell you what you cannot do. This is about women panel, because I think as women ourselves, we tend to have the stereotype of ourselves when we grow up. Your parents tell you what you cannot do. You go, don't go to the science field. Maybe more of us, not. There's still very few females on the technology field. Don't on the business field, having your own business, but don't let them tell you. You always. You are better than you think. You have more potential. Set your goal high, and I'm a very conservative person, but in the past 20 years, I'm a lot more aggressive because I learned throughout the whole process, to have confidence in myself and don't let myself stop me. So I hope one thing we can learn from today's discussion is to take that point away with you.
Thank you. Well, let's hear from Pam.
I'm a little bit different. I started off, after undergraduate, I started off working in the securities industry. I had my Series 6 and Series 7 licenses. I didn't really enjoy it, and so I came back to Eastern to get my master's in finance. And like Grace, it was before we were in this room, before Dr. Cotney was here, if any of you know him. I never took a class here. But I enjoyed Eastern because of the people that I got to know. I looked at U of M, and it was a day. It was only day, so everyone was fresh out of college. Nobody had a job. Where at Eastern, it was an evening program, and I went to graduate school with the superintendent of E-Course schools, with executives from Ford Motor Company, with various other executives and very knowledgeable people. And we did a lot of group work. And I was able to get to know those people and pick their brains and network with them. And so I think it was a wonderful experience. And after I graduated, I went into banking. I started off as a bank regulator, traveled everywhere throughout the country with that. Wherever there was a banking crisis, I got sent, and this was in the 80s when there was a big banking crisis everywhere. I spent about 3 months in Houston, and I've been to Puerto Rico. I've been all over the place. With all the travel, it got tough, and I had transferred to Chicago, and I just really wanted to come back to Michigan. So I went into banking. I worked as a vice president of lending at a bank. It was a bank that was in trouble. It was in the middle of the whole refi boom, and they weren't making money. So they brought me in to turn them around because the board were the primary stockholders, and they were all getting older, and they wanted to retire and get their money. So they needed to be profitable so they could sell. So they brought me in to turn it around, and it didn't take long. It wasn't that difficult. A lot of listening, a lot of paying attention, and then working with people directly. And we were able to turn around very quickly, and they sold the company. After a couple of years in banking, with all the mergers and acquisitions, I decided I needed to broaden my skill set and do some other industries. And I went into internal audit in the manufacturing industry, since this is Michigan. And I was in there for a while. Now I'm in consulting. I go everywhere. Whatever people need, we do. I'm certified in internal audit, information systems, and fraud. And so I have a lot of different clients in a lot of different industries. Most of my clients are here. I'm fortunate enough to have some really good clients here, so I don't have to travel. But every once in a while, I do. I spent about a month and a half in Denver this year, and I'm actually headed to Cleveland, probably in about 2 weeks. And so it's been very interesting. My advice, actually, it's a little bit of exactly what they said, kind of 2 pieces: networking, networking, networking. Not only through Facebook, not only through Twitter, but face-to-face networking. Every chance you get out there and network and talk to people. walk up to them, shake their hands, ask them those questions that you want to ask. Most people would love to answer those questions and give you their advice. And the other piece, and don't mind, I'm going to give two, and I've already heard it, is mentoring programs are wonderful. Find a mentor.
All right, thank you. I'll tell you a little bit about my journey. I have my bachelor's degree in industrial and organizational psychology from U of M. And at the time, I knew I wanted to pursue a degree that would address both human resources and organization development. And at the time, there were only 2 universities in the country that offered a program that encompassed both. And one was Eastern, and the other was Pepperdine University in California. And so since I lived in Michigan, it made sense to come here. And like Pam, I was absolutely delighted with my experience here. Not that I didn't enjoy my time at U of M, but I was really, one student in a sea of students. And I came here and I had the same colleagues. We worked on groups together in every class. We went through the program together. I had professors that were actually practicing consultants in the field. And so it was just a really powerful experience for me. And a funny story, so one of my most favorite professors from my time here at Eastern is still a management consultant, and he and I actually work on projects together now, all these years later. So built some great relationships with really quality people, and got both the HR side, which I knew I needed as an entree into the organization, because I always have cared about the experience people have at work, culture, employee satisfaction. That was really my driver, but I knew in order to have entree into business, it had to be through an HR role. So I'm an HR person who doesn't really care about traditional HR things. Compliance and policies aren't very exciting to me, but the organization development side, really being able to nurture and craft cultures, to set up systems that support people to achieve their goals, I got my fill of that here, so it was a really good experience for me. I'm currently managing a consulting firm that does work with executive leadership teams, boards of directors around strategic planning and goal setting. I do some executive search, otherwise known as a headhunter. I do some of that. I also create training programs for organizations that need to have their employees think a little bit differently about the way they do their work, so we thoughtfully shift the culture. And so I really enjoy that. The reason I'm able to have a successful consulting practice now is exactly what Pam said. I've spent the last 25 years networking, and so I have a lot of professional contacts that support my business. I spent about 10 years within the Henry Health System. Working in a large integrated system where there were over 100 HR people was a good experience for me, because I really learned how large systems behave and how the pieces come together. That was great. Then I went to work for McKinley for about a dozen years, and they're a national real estate property management company headquartered in Ann Arbor. And while I was at McKinley, I oversaw the HR department and the IT department. I know that's a weird combo. But for me it made sense, because I always have thought technology should serve people, and became a partner there. And like Rebecca, was spending most of my life on the road. And I had a moment where I thought, if I have to walk one more apartment and tell one more person how to remove a rust stain from a toilet, I might go insane. So that was when I decided to put my network to work and to create a consulting practice that allowed me to really do work that was more mission-driven and that spoke to my unique talents, which is more about culture and people. So my best advice to you would be just to remember throughout your career that the very best advocate for your professional development and your professional advancement is you. And so it's great to have mentors. You should actively seek them out. They will help you tremendously throughout your career. But don't be afraid to ask for what you want, because no one's going to come hand it to you. So if you're interested in figuring out how to get promoted, how to get ahead, how to earn more money, figure out a way to very politely say, I'm interested in developing myself. How would I do that? What would you need to see from me in order to put me in this position? Or what responsibilities would I need to take on to be able to earn more money? So learn how to advocate for yourself. It's critically important to your success. All right, so with that, let's ask some detailed questions of our panelists, and then we'll give you a chance to ask them some questions as well. If I could start with Grace, what do you think are some of the key metrics in an organization that are important to keep track of for an organization to really be successful and to stay on track? What would be some of the numbers or the scorecards that you would look at?
Well, I'm CFO, so I tell you money. But I think it really depends on type of industries and what stage of your companies are in. You know, if you're a startup company versus a growth versus your mature company, you're looking at different things. And we have a saying says, you know, manage by numbers. You know, you look at the, you know, for startup, you know, the growth and probabilities. Probably that's probably for startup. But for a growth company, you know, how your the growth of your revenues, how much you retain your customers, and to a mature companies, and then you know your customer satisfactions, and also the type of business. You know, is manufacturing company, you know, the safety issue is one, the returns on your products. So it's very different. But
Sure.
but you have to make sure you're measuring the right thing, because if you're not measuring the right thing, it can lead you to the wrong tracks.
Exactly, very critical. All right, Marissa, so you're the most recent graduate. The rest of us aren't saying when we graduated, but you're the most recent graduate. So what advice do you have for the students about securing a professional position? You talked a little bit about this, but let's talk more specifically.
Let's see, securing, I think the most important thing is know what you're looking for. You may not be able to find it right away, but kind of have that tunnel vision. Know what you are looking for, and find that in other companies. So, like I said, make sure you read their mission statements. How they're going to do research on you. You need to do some research on them. Figure out if that's a place that you really, really, really want to be, and if you can see yourself there. See if you're actually a fit there. Me going to IT, I will look stupid. That's not a right fit for me. But you know, for her it is. She did her research. She knew what she wanted. And that's what I'm saying to you guys. So make sure you do your research, because they're going to do their research on you. When you apply, they're not only going to do background checks, they're going to check your Facebook, they're going to look on your Instagram, they're going to check your tweets, what you're retweeting, what you're blogging, everything. So if I were you guys, put some security settings on that, just in case, because you are in college.
That's right.
But they're going to check all of that. So as much research as they're going to do on you, make sure you guys flip that and do that same research on them to make sure that it's a correct fit for you. So that's what I was thinking, securing that position. Just make sure it's the right way you want to go.
That's absolutely great advice. All right. So Rebecca, you've had considerable success in a consulting environment for a very large global consulting firm. And you've gone into a variety of business to solve really complex issues. What do you think are those underlying key business skills that serve you well in every one of those situations?
You know, it's interesting because I think there's a couple of things that always resonate with me. You know, one is, it goes back to the old Stephen Covey principles. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. So if I'm talking too much, I'm not listening. And so it's a lot about asking the clients, you know, and I think Pam talked about this, it's about asking the clients what's happening, what are their issues, what are their concerns, what works well, what doesn't work well, and really trying to understand. I put myself in their shoes. So if I'm being audited, or if I'm coming in to help a client implement a solution or solve a problem, I try to put myself in their shoes. Because a lot of times, if you don't do that, you don't understand where they're coming from. So I'll give you an example. I was doing a large SAP implementation, and my client counterpart just was very standoffish. And so he and I sat down, and I said, you know, let's talk about a variety of things. What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? You know, how can I help you be successful? And he looked at me and he goes, "You're not getting my job." And great. I don't know kind of where that came. You know, I said, I love coming in and helping you be successful, and then I want to go on and do the next thing. And so I think that I was really happy that he actually told me what the problem was. that he, for whatever reason, thought that I wanted his job, and I really didn't. And so once we got that kind of clarified, it was really helpful. And so, to me, I try to speak less and listen more and really try to understand where they're coming from. I think also, I think as Pam and Grace said, people love to answer questions. So, if you go back to, again, Dale Carnegie, people love to talk about themselves, except for me. But so if you ask somebody, I don't know, a random question, because I sometimes get nervous when I have to go into situations where I have to, it's a business networking session and I don't know anybody there. That makes me uncomfortable. And so what I did is I did some research to try to understand what are some general questions you can ask anybody. Are you from here? How do you know the host? Those kinds of questions to ask anybody that you can talk about in a situation. And that really helped me feel a lot more comfortable. And so I try to ask something that is going to get them excited about their success or their career or something, so that it gets them talking, which then oftentimes leads to another thing. So I think those are some of the underlying skills. I think always do your best. If you always, my mom always told me this, as long as you do your best, I'll always be proud of you, and that's always stuck with me. And it doesn't matter if that's an email or a document or a note. Everything is spelled correctly, everything is consistent, everything looks good, it has the right content, and making sure that it really is presenting kind of my, brand of wanting to really show that I do good quality work and that I work hard. So those are things.
Yeah, great advice, great advice. All right, so Pam, you have successfully earned several professional designations. As you mentioned, you started out with your Series 6 and 7 licenses to begin with, but you've gone on to get additional designations. So I'm wondering if you could share with the students how this has assisted you with your professional development, and how do you recommend that students work towards achieving professional designations?
Professional designations or certifications would be something like the CPA. That's a designation that you have. It's very helpful because if you look at a lot of want ads or employment ads, they're always looking for some kind of designation, and I'd be willing to bet that just about any profession you go into, there's some kind of professional designation that you have. It shows that you've taken those courses, that you've got the experience, that you're interested in that area. It's very important. I have 5 designations. I won't go over them all, but it's certified internal auditor. I'm certified in fraud prevention and detection. I'm certified in information systems and in risk management. In my profession, we go across the board. That's why I have so many certifications, because I go in every company, I go in every area, and whatever somebody needs, I can market myself to them. When I started out, I didn't have all those certifications. That took me 25 years to get there. A lot of the certifications require not only a test, but also experience. And people need to, someone that has to write in and say, yes, this person has done this, and yes, I recommend them for it. In order to be certified in fraud, a previously certified fraud examiner needs to work with you and then certify that you have achieved, that level of education, that level of experience. I would recommend just pick a certification. It doesn't have to be all of them. Don't go nuts. Like I said, it took me 25 years to get there. But think about what you want to do. Look in the employment ads and see the job that you want. What are the certifications or the education that they're looking for? And then work toward that. See how you need to get that. Some require 2 years of experience. Some require 10 years of experience. So, do something that you can achieve. CPA is a great one. Certified Internal Auditor is a great one. I think Supply Chain has one. See what it is. Read about it. Look at what the test is, what's going to be on the test, and what the level of experience is. And I would recommend, looking at certifications. If that makes sense.
That's great advice.
They are very important, but you don't need all of them. Just pick one. Just start with one.
Start with one. It gives you credibility, for sure.
Yes. Certified Management Accountant is one that's really coming into play of late. If you look in the want ads, almost everything has some kind of designation or certification. So just pick one and start. You don't have to, you don't have to conquer the world right away. Just pick one. Yeah.
And I think it helps your professional development to go through the process of obtaining it too. It's
Yes.
just, it's
Very
an
good.
additional investment in yourself.
Yes.
Even just to go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I was asked this week, I wanted to share with you guys. So I spent all day Monday with the executive leadership team of a multinational, publicly traded company that's been around for almost 100 years. And that's one of the things that I enjoy most is working with executive teams. And so not atypical was this team in terms of their makeup. So it was a team of 7, and they were all white men. And I had to go 2 levels down from the CEO to find the most senior woman in the organization. And so I spent some time with her as well as I was conducting my assessment. And she was very formal. I had very warm, engaging conversations with everyone throughout the day, and she was probably the most formal with me. And it was just at the end of our conversation when I said, "Is there anything else we should talk about? Anything else you want to ask me?" She said, "No, I'm good." And then she stopped and hesitated and said, "Well, there is one thing." And I thought, this is like, I'm going to get the real stuff now. And she said, "Have you ever been in a situation where you're the only woman in the room?" And I smiled and said, "All the time." And so what I want you to know, because this is a women in business conversation, is that it still is very much a situation where in the most senior levels in an organization, when women are underrepresented. If you look at boards of directors for publicly traded companies, we're still occupying about 17% of the board seats. This particular company that I was talking about serves an industry where 84% of the purchasing decisions for their products are made by women. And so here's what I want you to know about that. I don't spend any time railing against the injustice of that. What I think is my responsibility, and I'll be interested to see what my colleagues think, what I think is my responsibility is to proudly be that woman in the boardroom, to add value to the conversation every time that I'm there, and to make the future path easier for each and every one of you, and to make the path easier for my 2 daughters who are 9 and 11. I think that's my responsibility. My responsibility is to raise the question when it's appropriate. My responsibility is to advocate not only for other women, but to make sure that we have a diverse representation, that the leadership base looks like the customer base. I think that's my responsibility. But my primary responsibility is to make sure that I'm adding value when I'm in those situations. I don't know if you guys feel differently about that or you have similar experiences.
I had an experience when I first started out in banking. I was a bank regulator and bank president. When you're a regulator, you get to deal a lot with executive management, and the bank president would pat you on the back of the hand and say, now, honey." Right. That was a long time ago. But I didn't take it personally. I didn't get mad. I just did the best job that I could do, and I made sure that I was value added. And when I made recommendations, I stayed objective. I made value added recommendations, and before you know it, he was treating me with a great deal of respect and actually coming to me for assistance.
Yeah, perfect. I think it's interesting because when I look at that situation, and Deloitte has a very strong women's diversity initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And, for a while I was actually on leading for our region, the Hispanic network, which was interesting because everyone says, "Well, are you Hispanic?" And I'm not, but the guys had come to me and said, "Can you help us? We don't feel like we're being treated equally." So we started, and you've been dealing with this for a while. And what I found was interesting is that in IT especially, there's not a lot of women, and I think this goes back to a comment earlier, there's not a lot of women in science and technology. And my question is, why? Why are women not being encouraged to do that? When I see my 9-year-old niece struggling a little bit with math, I want to spend more time with her to make sure that she's understanding that she can do this, that it's not, just takes some dedication and timing. I don't think it's, and I'm sure there's a lot of perspectives, but I've never felt like, actually with the men that I think that are older than me, I've always felt very much respected. I have been called honey and sweetie and all those other things. And in fact, I kind of laugh. I mean, you know, on one hand, it's kind of like, well, are they trying to put me down? And in most cases, they're not. They're not deliberately being mean. Of course, there are the cases where they are trying to be mean, right? And so that's where you have to let it roll off your back as well. But one time somebody said that, one of the clients said, okay, dear, I think he called me. And I kind of looked at him, and then he realized what he said, and I didn't say anything because I was thinking, okay, what's going to happen now? His face turned beet red. And I knew he was embarrassed, and I said, it's okay, and he goes, no, he goes, we're debating, again, me debating stuff, right, I guess, debating something, and that's what I call my wife. And I said, so then it was back on me, and I said, oh, well, then I'm honored that you would put me at that level, you know, and I kind of used a little bit of humor to kind of address it. I mean, when people are being mean, you know, and you know, maybe I don't know what the word is, but I like to think that most people are good people. Yes, I've been treated poorly. And that's exactly more of the reason to just kind of stick to the facts, maintain composure, and just kind of move on from there. But you know, it still goes back to me within technology is why women aren't studying it, even in college and even before then. And so I think if we could get more women studying IT in particular, I think accounting is better. I think it may be even majority women at this point, but you know, I think that's part of it. I think also part of it is that depending on your goals, whatever your goals are, and I talked with, a few years ago with some of the young consultants at Deloitte about, you know, what their career goals are. Because a lot of them would say, oh, well, I want to wait until I get married. I want to wait until I have kids. Wait. And I said, that's great. You have to figure out what your goals are and what you want to have, you know, in your life to have that balance. But I would share, you know, maybe too openly that I kept thinking I would wait, and it's, you know, I don't want to say the train's left the station, but you can only wait so long, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to figure out when the right balance is to have all those things, because the work's going to be there, the activities are going to be there. Figure out what you want to have your life in balance so that you can ultimately achieve your goals. And I think with that sometimes requires some flexibility from your employers, but be aware of what that means and what you're asking them to do. We had a gentleman that came to us, I'll call him a millennial, who wanted to train for a marathon. And we said, okay, that's great. And he said, so I need to take, you know, 2.5-hour lunch breaks every day. So that was a little bit difficult. And we said that, you know, I don't know that when we're working at a client, and the client works, you know, generally these hours, if that's going to make sense. But we ultimately, you know, agreed that he could take a little bit longer time, as long as he got his work done and figured it out. Now, granted, it wasn't exactly what he asked for, but we wanted to make sure that he was trying to get the right balance. And so there's always opportunity for discussion, and it goes back, I think, too, to asking what you want. So a lot of different thoughts there, I guess. So.
Right. So we have about 20 minutes left because we're scheduled to go to 11:10, and I want to give all of you an opportunity to ask us some questions. So what would you like to know? You've got some pretty amazing women here. Yes.
Okay, so I'm a manager of my mom's actually IT medical consultant firm, and I help her build the program from the ground up, so I know the ins and outs of it. And recently we just onboarded about 6 or 7 males, and they're the first in our group. And I've actually been having a little bit of issues with the fact that they don't respect me because I'm so young, and I just want to know kind of some tips to help manage that a little bit better.
That's a great question. You want to tackle that one? Or?
I mean, I think part of it is making sure that the expectations are clear.
Yes.
So, you know, I don't know if it's, I think there's a couple of things. Partly, I think it depends on kind of their level of experience. And certainly, you know, they may have more experience. I mean, I work with people that have been in IT for 30 years, which is more than I have. And so I think part of it's just setting kind of those expectations. So I would probably try to meet with them one-on-one and have some discussions with them. What are their career goals? What are their, you know, things that they want to accomplish? What are your expectations of them? But then I would also work with, you know, your mom and the leadership team. When somebody doesn't meet those goals or expectations, how are you going to hold them accountable? Because I think that's a lot of a problem that I see across men and women. Somebody says they're going to get something done, they don't get it done, and then what happens? And if there's no repercussion for missing a date, I mean, not that you want to fire them, right?
Right.
But, I mean, there has to be a way to hold them accountable. I don't know if anyone wants to.
Good question, I agree with that.
And I think it also goes back to, I think Karen, you had said it about, self-confidence. And, build up your own self-confidence and make sure that you know that, you're their boss if that's the case. And, if you project self-confidence and if you know where you stand, then they'll come around, or they should.
Absolutely. Confidence is your most valuable possession. You have to actively nurture it and protect it because you will be challenged by a variety of situations throughout your life. And so do what you can to really be clear on your value proposition and your role.
And it's okay that you don't know what they know. That's perfectly fine.
Yep.
And they're going to, I mean, I was on the phone last week with a guy, deep security technical expert, and we were talking about vulnerability assessments, and he, on the technical details. And so I was like, okay. And finally I said, I need you to hold off for a second. You're speaking very rapidly. I really want to understand what you're saying. Can you go through step by step with me? Well, he was angry at that point. He didn't want to do that. But I made him do it, and because he had to understand that I was the client at that point, and that he needed help me understand. And if not, then we weren't going to be able to work together effectively. And that's not what I said, but that's kind of what I showed him. But it's perfectly fine that you don't know everything that they know, and you can even say, "Look, I know you have a lot of great experience. That's why we hired you, and I'm here to help do X, Y, Z." So don't be afraid that you don't know what they know.
Great question. Other questions? Yes?
This is one thing that's concerning me. As a male in this situation, what can I do to not only help advocate for women in the workplace, but kind of avoid those situations where the gentleman is uncomfortable or misspoke? I don't know, because you were saying about how confidence is your best thing, but when that, as a male in this situation where it's predominantly males, that can come off maybe a little bit arrogant, and I'm just wondering what I could do maybe to help.
Yeah, I think that's a great question.
Congratulations for coming to this. I think you kind of hit the ball on the head by understanding. Understanding. That's very good.
I think what's true is that nobody gets up in the morning and says, "Whoa, I'm going to actively discriminate against my colleagues," right? Nobody does that. But what's true is we come to work our whole selves, right? Not just our professional selves, but we bring our personal lives, we bring our family history. We're this big, wonderful, gooey mess of humanness, and we show up. And so, if your parents had held very, very traditional roles and your mom never worked, and all of a sudden you're working with females, you may be a little bit confused about that on some subconscious level. And so when these things come out, I think it's important to know that people don't usually intentionally do it. And the second thing is a great educational opportunity. And so what I found is being able to say to people, I really admire and appreciate X about you, and I'm wondering if I can share some feedback with you about something I noticed, and I may or may not be right, but I noticed that in this situation, you were listening really intently and respectively to John, and when Mary spoke up in the meeting, your body language and your tone and your respect level differed a little bit, and so I wanted to hold that up, have you take a look at it, and just ask if there's anything I can do to help. And so I try to educate people. When it becomes inappropriate and disrespectful, then more formal action needs to be taken. And you can try to talk to people, and if that doesn't work, you should involve human resources or your manager or something to that extent. But generally people, if you can approach them respectfully and from the vein of, I'm trying to help you be successful in this team environment, people take it well. But there are some folks that you're not going to change their mind. All you can do is change their behavior at work. And sometimes it has to be good enough.
To piggyback off of what you're saying, I actually my company, we're kind of dominated by women. Our vice president is a woman, and granted it is a smaller company, but our vice president is a woman, our marketing director is a woman, We have our customer service and management. We kind of share the front office space. There's only one guy up there with us. So being up here in women panelists, my company is predominantly women. So we're lifted up, we're encouraged. My main, I won't say issue, but maybe uncomfortable moment is that I am only one of 2 African American women in my company. So the sales president or VP, whatever, he changes his title pretty much every other week, but he can do that. But because he's one of the owners, so he can kind of do what he wants. But he would come to me and say, "Hey, I just need you to do this," and would slide a quote on my desk, would slide a customer who's asking for all this marketing stuff, and he'd just say, lay it out, send it out to the client, let me know how it goes. And it's like, well, hold on, why are you just kind of throwing it at me when everybody else is in meeting, face-to-face interviews and everything on how to set that up? So I went into his office one day very politely because I didn't want to come off as the angry black woman. But I went very nice and I said, hey, you know, when you talk to Sherry and when you talk to Natalie, they get face-to-face one-on-one time. How can I get that with you? Because I want you to know that I am committed and I'm guaranteeing you, success with this client, but I want to get that same feel from you. Oh, I'm sorry, I've just been busy lately, blah, blah, blah. But after we had that initial conversation, now I have those one-on-one conversations. I have those one-on-one meetings. So it works out. So I like what you said to, come in, don't just be mean about it, but say, hey, I like that you do this, but I did notice this. That's kind of what I did with him, kind of in a more direct way, but that's what I did with him, and it worked out for the better. So definitely watch out for that stuff.
For sure.
And I think the key is one-on-one. So you should never criticize in public.
No.
Right.
If you criticize anybody in public, everybody's going to hate you, right? But if you do it, like if you're running the meeting, and say if we're all in a meeting and I didn't hear Grace, I may say, okay, Grace, what do you think? Because sometimes people aren't comfortable just speaking up. Sometimes people will just talk all over each other. And so if you notice that somebody is quiet in a discussion, pause and ask, what do you think? And give it a minute. And then, so I think that helps a lot as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, draw them in. Be their advocate.
Yeah.
Great question. Other questions? Yes.
So I'm a very naturally bubbly, excitable, happy person, and it's wonderful for my energy levels. The problem is a lot of people seem to think that I'm a lot younger than I am, and they tend to condescend towards me and treat me as though I'm an airhead, and it's very frustrating because I'm not. I'm cheerful, I'm not stupid. How do I guess, get people to take me more seriously? And I don't always want to just sit, hello there, I'm a professional businesswoman, and you must listen to what I say because I am obviously confident. It's just not me. So how do I take my whole self to work and not just my professional self?
Right. Because your whole self does show up.
Yeah.
My advice to that was just be aware of your energy, be aware of your personality, because not everybody can take it. So I'm not saying shut down and be that businesswoman that you're saying, but just pull it back a little bit, and as you get to know more people, certain people will be, available to accept that. So then you'll be able to be your cheerful, exciting self with those people. But then others, just pull it back a little bit so it doesn't come in the way of business. It doesn't come in the way of the relationships, and everything can still run smoothly. So I'm not saying change yourself at all. I'm just saying be aware of it. Like me, I'm a bubbly person too. I like to have fun, but today I'm a little more refined, and that is fine. But you catch me outside of here, we can go get a drink and chill. You know what I mean? But it's just you have to be able, to adapt to that situation.
Yeah.
So just be aware of your energy is what I would say.
And the people probably who you deal with.
Yeah.
Some people can, accept that, some people not. So you have to be kind of know when you can be yourself, and sometimes you just have to be your evil twins. So.
Yeah, it's about targeting your style a little bit to your audience, but to do it in a way that still feels authentic to you. I would encourage you to research and read up a little bit on something called executive presence. And this is something that, regardless of what your natural style is, all of us can benefit from. Because when you really are trying to put your best foot forward professionally, to be aware of the components of executive presence, which include not only the manner in which you communicate, but your personal comportment, your style, how you shake hands, all of those things actually matter. And we're not suggesting, none of us would be suggesting that you be different than who you are. But if you have confidence, if you have executive presence, then you can be yourself, because those things will allow you to be successful in any situation. Other questions?
I was just saying, I'm kind of the opposite of her. I'm a lot more reticent. I'm not, I can be I can advocate very well for myself. I do have confidence in myself. But I can be more reticent and stay in the background more, and just kind of the opposite. How can I learn to be more vocal and speak up for myself more if I need to, in certain situations?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to answer all the questions, so jump in, guys, if you...
I think practice. Sometimes, like when I first say, I'm pretty, reserved in the beginning too. Start with small group. Practice kind of will build your confidence, and then you kind of grow from there. Because once you're more comfortable, you know what's the way you will make you comfortable, and then when you go to the next level, and then it kind of will eventually build up to that way.
Are you familiar with Toastmasters? I think it's free.
It is, yeah.
It's a great place. I mean, Dale Carnegie's great, but it's very expensive. I know people who have they've been in the same situation. They've taken a Dale Carnegie class, and I'm shocked at how much they really came out of their shell and, really weren't able to talk. But Toastmasters is a great thing. There's local chapters everywhere, and they meet at various times, and basically it's just about public speaking. It's a small group, and they're all in the same boat that you're in. They're all there to encourage you. They're all there to give you, the positive feedback. Nobody's there to criticize. I would suggest, if you want to if you're a little bit afraid to speak up, you kind of sit in the back. Yeah, that's just a thought. Toastmasters. I know people have been very
I think
successful.
I think a couple of things. One is encourage yourself to in every meeting or ask one question. So set a small goal for yourself, just one. Like Grace said, do that. I think Toastmasters is good as well. I think that one of the books I was talking about is Go Ask Anyone. I think is something like that, or it was Cards or something. But when you're meeting somebody for the first time, the benefit of social media is there's a lot of stuff out there. So if you Google me or whatever, you'll probably find different things. And I spoke at this event, or I don't know if you might see a picture or something. And then so that way, if we're going to meet, you can say, oh, I saw that you did blah blah blah, or that you have interest in this. Tell me more about that. I think it'll help too if you know who you're talking to. Do a little bit of due diligence. I think Marissa mentioned that as well, and then that hopefully will get you a little bit more comfortable, even if you know where they're from.
Actually, preparing is a great suggestion, and Dale Carnegie or Toastmasters is a great suggestion. It's if you're an introvert, you're probably always going to be an introvert, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because introverts really are powerful in the workplace. They're very thoughtful, and we need them. But certain situations, you need to train yourself to be a little bit more of an extrovert. And so public speaking, whether it's a small group, a medium group, or a large size group, generally is terrifying for almost everybody.
See, I don't have any problem with public speaking. I can get up in front of a crowd and speak for days. It's generally the more intimate meeting settings.
Yeah. And so some of these suggestions, like Toastmasters is probably a good one. But knowing that about yourself, I think allows you to purposefully plan goals to get your comfort level and confidence level up in that specific area. I have the opposite situation. I've done enough teaching and facilitation work that small and medium-sized groups are great for me, but when I have to speak to a crowd of 300, that's terrifying for me. And I have to do that with some regularity. So I actually worked with a communications coach on getting my skills up in that regard. And really working with her to target that. So it's still not my favorite thing to do, I'll be honest with you. But I now know what I need to do to take care of myself to do it well. And so invest in yourself. I think it's brilliant that you actually know exactly what it is. And once you know exactly what it is, now you can build skills around it to feel comfortable. You had a question as well.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, just like as a Black woman in business, like how are some ways that you broke down barriers? Because it's enough that as being a woman, a lot of men don't see a woman in business or in high positions, but to also be a minority and to be a Black woman, like a lot of people don't see us in business or in high positions. So what are some ways that you went about breaking down barriers? And
proving to people that you want to be taken seriously and asking for what you want without being stereotyped as like, you know, the mad black woman or you're being too serious.
I've never heard that stereotype before.
Seriously? I mean, it's real. One of the main things I can say is constantly smile, know your stuff. I can't remember which one of these lovely ladies said it, but they said when you're in a meeting, make sure you at least say add one thing, add one good comment. Always do that. Make yourself known. Don't blend in. Make them know that you are there. In some ways, I know this sounds really aggressive, but command attention, command authority.
That's right.
I live by that. Another thing are face-to-face talking to people, just like I did with my boss. Sat down and said, hey, you know, not really feeling this. You have to continue to do that. When there's company outings, make sure you show up, because if you don't, that gives them time to talk. You know, not saying you constantly have to be around, but like I said, you can't blend in. You have to be wherever they are. That's where you are too. Being assertive, speaking loudly, not saying you got to yell, because that's another thing, black women are loud, but you know, it's true. But don't be so quiet, don't be meek. It's another thing, command authority. So that's the biggest thing I can tell you, is to command authority one-on-one with people who you may have an issue with or may not have an issue with, or maybe you see that they're uncomfortable with you. Not saying go make them more uncomfortable, but just have a conversation with them so they know whatever stereotype or however they're feeling about you, it's untrue. Give them the real you. And that's pretty much what I've been doing, and that's with school, that's with business. Actually, the Voice of Your Customer marketing company that I work for, the owner is a woman. So when we get contracts and they realize, oh, these are two women coming to tell us how to do more things with our company, they don't like it at first. But when we come with our resources, we come with our research, we come with our answers, we come with our facts, we come with our numbers, then they're like, oh, they know what they're talking about. Then we're right in. And on top of that, it's two black women that are coming to tell them this. So it's just backing yourself up at all times. And that would be my advice.
It's great advice.
Honestly.
I think we have time for one more question. Yeah.
Of course, being a woman, most of us want to have families and whatnot. How have you found that balance with, because that's one of the things about rising so far up in the corporate world, or in the business world, you don't want to be spending so much time at work that you're taking that away from your family. So how have you been able to find that balance of family time, taking care of your children, raising your children, and also balancing work and not always taking it home with you?
Well, so I think I started maybe a little later than most people do having kids. I was 36 when my first daughter was born. And at the time I was a partner in a national real estate firm, and there were no women in the executive ranks. It was me. So the day I got home from the hospital, the chairman of the board of directors called me at home and said, I just want to say congratulations. I also wanted to tell you that every woman in the company is watching you. And so make sure you figure out how to balance everything, because you're the role model. Like, no pressure at all, right? And I have to tell you, I didn't do it well at first, and I was very stressed out. And I am a very active parent. Like, I insist on being fully present in my children's lives. And so I remember going to the CEO about maybe 2 or 3 weeks when I come back from maternity leave. And I said to him, I feel like, I feel really stressed, I feel really torn, and he just looked at me and said, why are you talking to me about this? Just figure it out. I don't care when you're here, I don't care what you do, just get your job done. And he literally walked out of my office. And I had to take him at his word that I had 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week, just like everybody else. And I had to figure out how to make that work. So I don't compartmentalize well. And I heard you say, how do you make sure you don't let this bleed over into... I had to stop thinking like that, because I used to think like that. I used to think like, don't bring a briefcase home, don't... I have 24 hours in a day. I have to decide how to spend those hours every day. And so what I don't do is miss any activity in my kid's life. I'm there for everything. But if that means after they go to bed from 9 to 10:30 at night, I'm putting together a client report, then I do that. But I've decided that that's my privilege. I get to be at their field hockey game, and then I'll do the work later. So I've just blended everything together. I work when I work. I'm with my family with my family, and it can all happen in the span of one day. But you have to decide what's important to you. You have to decide what your priorities are. You have other thoughts, ladies?
I don't have any kids, but I would say one thing is that I think that women have a tendency to say too much. Instead of, a man could say, I have an appointment, I need to go at 5:30. And a woman, we feel guilty a lot. I have to leave because I have to go to my niece's, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why did I just say that? And so you don't always have to say why. It's just that I have an appointment, I have a hard stop at 5:30, or whatever it is. I mean, you don't always have to say everything all the time. And I think also it depends on the culture of the organization. Sometimes a guy could say, it's 3 o'clock, I need to go to my son's soccer game. And everyone's like, oh, he's a great dad.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, I have to go at 3 o'clock to my son's soccer game, the perception may be, well, why is she leaving early?
Yeah.
So you have an appointment. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what.
I think one thing is you are the most important person. If you're not happy, your family's not going to be happy, you're
Right.
going to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to pay attention to yourself too. So don't let the others take higher priority. You are the most important person in the whole world.
Absolutely.
And at Deloitte, I mean, it's an up or out, it is with a lot of the big consulting firms. You have to recognize that you may, Kathy Banco is an amazing woman who works for Deloitte, and she's authored a book, and it's called I think it's around the corporate lattice, because they couldn't really figure out a word, kind of like ladder. And what it was is kind of dialing down the work to dial up the personal. And it didn't mean that you weren't working full-time or, other things. But what it meant is that I could be, say, a manager, and I decide that I'm going to have a family. And so that means I kind of step aside to rebalance my life. But that may mean that somebody I started with in my class may progress then above me. It could mean that somebody that used to work for me is now going to progress while I'm dialed down in my career. They're going to go up. That's just the way it is. You know what I mean? You've stepped aside to balance your stuff differently, and they may not. So recognize that's going to happen. And it's weird, of course, but it's part of your choice in maintaining that life.
All right. Thank you for being such an enthusiastic audience. I'm going to pass out.